Joining us now is Erin Perrine, the Principal Deputy Communications Director for the 2020 Trump campaign. Erin, I want to talk about the executive order today because a lot of people are saying that is more that has been done with a single signing of a pen that was done in 8 years of the prior administration. So if people are saying that right now, how can that messaging be used come the election year in order to reach not only maybe moderate voters, but maybe even some black voters who otherwise would not be considering President Trump?
Not only did what President Trump do today take a more bold and aggressive stance on police reform and making police safe for safe communities than we saw in the last 8 years, but look at the last 40 years. Joe Biden has been in D.C. for over 40 years as a senator and then as the vice president of the United States. And what President Trump did today was step up, bring community together with police and say, here are actions I can take as the chief executive of the United States to help make communities safer and support the strong and faithful women and men of law enforcement in the United States. Joe Biden has never stepped up to the plate to be able to take those charges on, to be able to try and create change. So President Trump has done what he can as chief executive and is now working with Capitol Hill. That same framework, that same bipartisanship that brought together criminal justice reform, a landmark piece of legislation in this country that helped undo the crime bill that Joe Biden put into place, which overly disproportionately affected black men in this country and black Americans, putting them behind bars. You see that President Trump stepped up, built a bipartisan consensus, and delivered reform. That kind of bipartisan consensus, that foundation that was built, is what they will use as the model to be able to try and bring forth a larger police reform bill. But what President Trump did today is an incredible action to bring safer communities with safer policing.
And you bring up the fact that there really hasn't been progress made on this front for the past 40 years. And I could even argue that we've gone backwards on a lot of them. I mean, we can talk about that 1994 crime bill. We can talk about what President Bill Clinton did. But we can even talk about Republican presidents, going back to Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan as well, with the war on drugs. But it appears as if the Republican Party has had a little bit of a realignment, if you will, when it comes to this issue. I mean, it's not so much of a criminal. I mean, we really haven't seen Republicans that much call for criminal justice reform over the past 40 years, as you were saying. But now it seems to almost be a centerpiece of this administration. When we talk about the First Step Act, we talk about, for example, reaching black voters with the economy. I mean, that messaging has been more apparent now than it's been over the past 40 years. What is taking place within the Republican Party? Is there a new shift that's taking place, or is this just something under the current White House?
The Republican Party has changed because the leadership of the party has changed. The leadership of the Republican Party is President Donald Trump, and he is ready to take bold action to help fight for every American to have a better future. He doesn't pay lip service to reform. He fights for it and he delivers it. He delivered record low unemployment for Black Americans, Asian Americans, Latino Americans, veterans, and women. You name it, this president delivered when Democrats played lip service for decades and took it for granted, especially the black vote. And on this campaign, we're not afraid to engage with the black community. The president goes into the black community, talks with black leaders. We saw the vice president just last week sitting down in a black church to have a conversation about changing this country. And we're going to be opening Black Voices for Trump community centers in neighborhoods across the country. So not only are we having the most aggressive digital campaign messaging across the board with our coalitions to get that message out there, we're going to be in the communities as well. We're going to put the financial backing there as well to be able to say we're here and ready to have the conversation about how President Trump has not only changed the Republican Party, but has changed the country and made it better. So this is a president who has completely reshaped this country, but the Republican Party to be a stronger, more unified, more accepting party than ever before.
And I think that's very important, especially as we're acknowledging some of the flaws that Joe Biden has on this very front. I mean, he did have very much so strong black support during the primary season, but his record isn't necessarily so strong. And what you're talking about right now, even Van Jones on CNN said that this executive order today was a step in the right direction. And he's praised the Republicans for the past year, if not more, saying that they are the ones leading the charge on criminal justice reform. But really quick before I let you go, too, we see that Joe Biden, for example, is being called a little bit more of a favorable candidate than Hillary Clinton was back in 2016. I think that speaks about how bad of a candidate Hillary Clinton was. But does that change anything for the campaign, or is it the same process as usual?
Joe Biden's as big a dumpster fire candidate as Hillary Clinton was. That doesn't change whichever one you put out there. Hillary Clinton was wildly unfavorable, and her favorability took a huge hit when President Trump engaged directly in that campaign and put and put a name to her and went for her directly. He hasn't been able to do that with Joe Biden yet. And so you will see the more we talk about Joe Biden's disastrous record, not only for jobs, not only for communities in this country, but across the board as the swamp creature he is versus President Trump, you will see his favorability take a huge hit the way Hillary Clinton did. Democrats are a dumpster fire. Their candidates are terrible. It doesn't matter who you put up. Put them on a debate stage with President Trump and watch for a good time.
Yeah, and I think the debates are actually going to be something where are really going to have a much larger effect than in past debates, for example. I mean, right now we can see that even the Democratic strategy is to keep Joe Biden out of the spotlight for the time being. You don't have to take my word for it. Terry McAuliffe was just saying that. But I think once debates do start taking place, we're going to get a better understanding of these two candidates. Erin Perrine, always a pleasure speaking to you. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you.